I don't know about the flow. You'll go back and listen to this and go, dude, the guy needs to be on medications, man. He's not there. He's not there yet. And that's kind of the story of my life. So.
You're listening to 515, the Ultra Podcast, the show that invites you into the lives of people who make up the Ultra family. Here's your host for these conversations, Larry Ryan.
Thanks, MJ. Today is an Athlete in Profile 2-4. I'm releasing this episode a day early so that you can get to know my guests and then tune in and cheer them on at the Ultraman World Championships, which start tomorrow. Happy U.S. Thanksgiving! Today's Athlete in Profile for the World Championship holds an age group record at the Ultraman Canada for 60 to 69. He has also competed in 32 Ironman races and recently completed the Rim to Rim to Rim at the Grand Canyon. He holds a streak of 25 consecutive outings at the Yakima River Canyon Marathon. Joining me from his home in Bellevue, Washington, it's M.Moody. Hey, Mark.
Howdy, howdy.
Just so people understand a little bit about where you are, because you're not far from me. I'm in Vancouver. You're kind of close to Seattle, Washington in the United States. Where exactly would we tell people Bellevue is in relation to Seattle?
Basically 9 miles east of Seattle, just the other side of Lake Washington. There are two floating bridges that leave Seattle, and Bellevue is on the east side of Lake Washington.
Mm-hmm. Well, Mark, I mean, you and I met a couple of years ago now, back when Shane Duffy was on his quest to complete 6 5:15 distance races in a 12-month period. I jumped in at Ultraman Arizona and met you and him and the rest of the crew with Dan and Bobby Seuss. Dan Attard and Bobby Seuss was there. And when was it that, and how was it that you got hooked up with Shane? Like, I know that you were at many of his races, and how'd that all start for you? Because I'm not sure that you he didn't have a Ohana connection to begin with. How did you do that?
Well, he didn't crew, actually. He volunteered at Louisville, Ironman Louisville in 2018, I believe. And I was there doing the Ironman, and I was with a group called C26. And he was taking bikes as people came in off the bike, and putting them into transition. Mm-hmm. And so he reached out to C26 and said, look, I need a crew. I'm going to do the Ultraman in Penticton. And I was already kind of interested in it anyway. So I kind of put my hand up and said, yeah, I would definitely come and crew for you. And so I met Shane and Gail and me and Bill Justice. That's when we met. That was the genesis of our, we became a band, so to speak.
Yeah. And that's Gail Locke's, the extraordinary masseuse that God. Shane brought over from Australia.
Yeah. Don't get me going, because I'll start crying. She is everything.
Yeah.
But it was actually so much fun. And, and just the whole, I used to kind of crack up, but I mean, the whole Ohana, the whole idea of just, everybody's rooting for everybody, and we're going to get through this. And you're in Penticton and, riding through the Cascades in Canada. And it's just,
yeah,
one of the most beautiful experiences I've ever had. So I was, so that, anyways, that's how that started. And then I just kind of followed him around. I went to Florida and crewed for him there, and then Arizona, where I met you. And then, and I thought I knew what crewing was all about until you kind of jumped on board. And I still have a video of you, and I don't know if people understand exactly how, when especially on the bike, when you're coming through, and you have your crew van there, and you have somebody running alongside you handing bottles. And man, it's textbook. And if I ever become a crew coach, I will use that video. I hope you don't mind, as just how to get it done. Because you
Yeah.
were running. You're a track coach, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
and
right.
it shows in this particular video. The very clean, crisp handoff. And if you remember, it was really windy on top of everything else in that early part of that the
Yeah.
bike leg. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was you kind of remember those moments, and it's not like any other kind of race because it's 3 days and
Yeah.
it's 2 nights, and you're spending a night in Princeton, and then I don't even know what to expect so much in the Ultraman, because I was there crewing for Shannon Callie's, and the volcano hit, so they changed the course,
Mm.
which is
You're talking about the first time you crewed now.
yeah, the first time I crewed for Shannon. So
Yeah.
and this was this is Kona, so which is a completely different cookie.
Hmm.
So yeah, I think I've crewed in Florida 4 times.
And for people listening that are looking for crew members, I got to say, you were one of the hardest working men on a crew I've ever seen. Like, you did not stop from the moment you get up at 3:30 in the morning until the moment you went to bed at 1 a.m. the next night. Like, you were working all day long, cleaning stuff, putting stuff, reorganizing, getting stuff, going shopping. Like, if anybody needs a crew member, and Mark's willing, he's an awesome crew chief.
Oh, well, thanks. Like I said, I learned that work ethic. I thought I had a work ethic until I met you, but it's really that's what it's all about. And to think that you know this may sound a little corny, but being the athlete is almost the easiest job, because there are so many things that the crew does, and to pretend like it's not a team race is kind of silly. It is a total team race. And
Yeah.
I've had people ask to crew for me, and I know I got my crew. I've got my crew chief Eric, who I've known for over 30 years. We were both in the Marine Corps together, and we both worked together side by side as the EMTs in the in the Seattle area. And then Ray, who has been a critical care nurse for over 40 years. And then another retired critical care nurse that I've worked with. That's my crew, and I wouldn't change any part of it.
Yeah. Yeah, no, and that's an important part. I mean, people that know you as well as these guys do, and that you work with in stressful situations.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's probably an important part of your connection as well. I know there's a story of when we were in Arizona, and right in front of us there was a accident at the intersection, and a truck got flipped over. And
Yeah.
you pulled into the middle of the intersection in our minifan, and turned your flashers on, and you went into total EMT mode right there. And we got to see what it looked like. Like, you were amazing in that situation.
It was kind of bad, though. I'm wearing my crewing jorts, and if you don't know what those are, I'm surprised, because I'm surprised they haven't taken off yet. I'm going to start my own line. But they're bib overalls, cut off, very short, and I'm wearing flip-flops, and I'm walking through the middle of this total carnage of this car crash. Kind of, when the cops pulled up, they were just like, "What is he doing?"
Yeah, and it was 4 or 5 lanes in each direction. It was a major intersection we were on.
Yeah, it was pretty crazy. It was kind of funny too, because we were like 5 or 6 cars back, and I just kind of pull into oncoming traffic and go right into the middle of the intersection.
Yeah.
And jump out of the car, and Shane's like, "What are you doing, mate?" Oh man.
Yeah, but I mean, and then we were all like hopping out and pulled the windshield out of that truck and got the guy out of there.
Right.
And and it was a good story. It's a good crew story, a little bonding for us before the race.
Oh, absolutely.
Well, you were talking about your getup that you wear while you're crewing, and I definitely think you should put those out as a line as well. Maybe I'll put a photo as one of the advertisements of that. You do kind of like to dress up a little bit and have some fun with it, kind of like Randy Latza does. When did you take that part of having fun with the race? Like, you've been doing this since 2018, you said. Were you doing that right
Yeah.
away, or is that something you picked up along the way?
Well,
and just
no.
built on?
This is Gail.
Oh, this is
This is
Gail.
all
Okay.
Gail. Yeah. And Gail has a vision, and it involved me in a pink wig. And we didn't even know each other, but she already had this stuff. She already had this stuff picked out. I don't know what she got the idea that I was going to wear it, but I don't know if you know how you get a buff. You know what a buff is?
Yep.
So I wore the Ultraman buff as a mini skirt with absolutely nothing underneath, and a coconut bra with a pink wig, and ran down the highway towards Shane. And he's on the bike, and yeah, the rest is history. I think that there's a video about that. But no, this is Gail's vision of me, for me, and it kind of, I don't know. It's like why she sees that in me, I don't know, but yeah, it just took off from there. And she wasn't even at Arizona, and she had 3 outfits. One of which involved a green derby hat, because remember at Arizona it
was St. Patrick's Day.
St. Patrick's Day. Yeah, so I'm wearing a green frock coat, for lack of a better word, derby hat with I won't go into detail about the garments that I was wearing underneath, but I think is it Randy?
Randy, yeah.
Yeah, he was even appalled, because he dresses up and he does it smartly. He doesn't wear G-strings. He wears underwear. He's not disgusting like I was. And I remember seeing Jen, and she just looked at me and just kind of looked away, like, okay, I can't I can't look anymore.
Yeah.
But so anyways, that's how that started, and it was interesting. Because is to just to dress normally. So the last time I crewed, I didn't have to wear any women's clothing. So I came home and wore them when I got home with the collection that I have here.
Yeah, well, like that was one of the things that when I came in Arizona, I'd only interviewed Shane for the podcast. I hadn't met you and I hadn't met Dan, but immediately it felt like a bunch of guys that like went to school together, and we were all ribbing each other and having a good time, and
yeah,
it just meshed really quick.
And then we brought on a ringer, that the kid, he looked like he was from Beck.
Yeah, Bobby Seuss.
Yeah, but and I'm running alongside of Shane, doing the best I can, and then it's almost like when the manager walks out since I'm watching the World Series, he walks out into the field and he points to the bullpen, So you point to Beck and make Beck gets to go out and run in the out and back up to the top of the hill and back with Shane, and finish the race with him. So
well, to be fair, Bobby Seuss was an Olympic athlete.
Yeah.
He was an 800-meter runner, I believe it was.
Yeah, so, whatever. And he looked good too. I mean, the guy was like 6'3", 180 pounds. Yeah, so it looked a lot better than lard-ass Moody, running alongside Shane. It just doesn't look good. It's not a good look.
Oh, it was fine. It was good. It was all good. Just getting back to when you got into this, then it was 2018. Is that when you went to Hawaii first to crew? Is that correct?
Well, I crewed for Shannon Callie's 2017 and 2018, and so I can't remember if we went to Kona in 18 or it was 19. It could have been 19 when we went to Kona.
Mm.
So yeah, she was the inspiration for me ever wanting to even attempt an Ultraman. And she's the kind of person that she lost count of how many Ironmans she did, somewhere around 50. She doesn't even know how many times she's climbed Mount Rainier. And she's the kind of person that would, I don't know how well you know Mount Rainier, but she would pull up to Paradise in the parking lot at 5 o'clock in the morning, summit, and come back down and be in the parking lot of Paradise at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, do these speed ascents up to the top of Rainier. Her and her best friend at the time, Christine Boskoff, who's now long gone, and she died in an avalanche in China. But So I was always inspired by her, and then decided that I wanted to try to do Ultraman Canada,
Mm-hmm.
and that's why I went up and crewed that first year.
Right.
In fact, that's when I met you. You were handing out, if you remember,
Yes.
you were handing out
Freezies.
what do you call those? Otter Pops.
Freezies. They were freezies.
Freezies, yeah. And at the most hellish time on the run, you're running, it's hill after hill after hill after hill after hill in Canada,
Yeah.
And then here's a guy handing out Otter Pops at the top of the, one of the last hills. And Shane recognized your voice, and I had no idea, who this guy was, but that was totally cool.
Yeah. Yeah, that was good. And then, so eventually you do Ultraman Canada yourself.
Mm-hmm.
That was the same race where Shane then came over to crew for Simon Cochran. So
yeah.
I guess your dream of being the champion of Ultraman Canada maybe subsided once you found out about that.
Well, no, I told this story. You may not have been at the after party.
I was not at the after party for sure.
I had made an arrangement with Simon that I would go ahead and let him win the race.
Oh, good.
If he wouldn't interfere with me getting the Kokua award, the Kokua award.
Oh, yes.
And then that way he would get some prize money and I would get some money. And then I found out that wasn't going to happen. But there's
never any money involved in Ultraman.
Yeah. And I thought, I was excited about being on the podium, and there's no podium, no prize money.
Yeah.
Just a lot of love.
Yeah. But you did get the age group record for 60 to 69. That's it.
I'm kind of thinking I'm the only person dumb enough at age 60 to attempt this. I don't think there's any, because I was like, who are the list of people to look for? I didn't see a list of anybody else.
Well, Steve King has that list. I know that you broke the record. There was a record previous.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, I thought it was kind of funny because I'm running by and Stephen, the golden voice of Stephen King, is talking about Mark Moody shattering this record, and I'm like, what are you talking about? And so after that, every time I ran by him, I just put my hands over my ears because I would go, because I don't want that. I don't want any pressure. I just want to finish the race. I'll be happy with that.
Yeah.
So.
Well, just so the listener knows, you did have a time of 30 hours, 36 minutes, and 39 seconds, which was 5th overall. So that was a good run at that race. You were just a double marathon behind Simon. He finished in 20 hours, which is like your day your day 2 time, and he was already done his double marathon by that time. But hey,
it was hard for me to let him go like that, and just to let him gain that time on me.
Slip away for 10 hours. Yeah.
Yes, look away. This guy took an Ambien. That was the only way I was going to get through that. But geez, yeah, what an incredible guy, and his family, and just he's the nicest guy in the world. And it's so funny to watch this world-class athlete be Insta-dad in 2 seconds.
Oh yeah.
And God, I love that stuff.
Yeah.
That's the beauty of Ultraman.
Yeah, and you had the opportunity to hang around with him a little bit before the race. You guys were all hanging out with Duffy and all that, and Gail.
Yeah.
So you did get a chance to get to know him because, like we said, you didn't see him on the race course, but at the finish line each day.
Well, Justice was kind of, I don't know if you know Bill Justice, but he was kind of making sure I kept my distance from Simon.
Oh.
Because he didn't want him to get to know me too well. And I think Justice was trying to kind of move in with his own agenda. So, I've forgiven him for that though.
Okay. Well,
yeah.
I know Bill listens, so he'll probably have a little bit to say about that as well.
I don't know if you've seen him lately. You won't even recognize him. He looks like a lumberjack, convict, serial killer, full beard, mustache.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, he's gone off the deep end.
Well, having traveled around the world now to these various 515 races. You've crewed at the Ultraman series. You even went over to Australia for Shane's sixth race that year. What do you think you've learned to prepare yourself for racing in Hawaii this year?
Well, let me just say, man, I was blown away. First of all, that Shane would help me come down. He would actually pay my airfare to fly down there, and just the way that race is run and the course is, oh my God, it's so beautiful. And the Australian people are just awesome. You know, they're just. It's funny. It's like Canada in a way because they have no idea just how bad they are. You know, like just badass people. You know, they do all kinds of stuff and don't even bat an eye. And they're just polite and friendly. But anyways, I loved Australia. But what have I learned? Nothing that's going to really help me because I'm just pathetic. And I just, you know, it's kind of, I'm already kind of freaking out about the swim, you know, so I'm going to be there a couple of days early just so I can kind of get out there and you know, get used to swimming open ocean and with waves and all that good stuff. So, yeah, I think that the most important thing is nutrition, and it starts. It starts days before the race,
right? And
I mean, your conditioning is just kind of. There's always, you know, when you're getting ready and you're training on the bike, the swim, or the run, there's always some niggle. There's always something that's kind of holding you back, but you compensate by working harder in other departments, and then it just all just kind of seems to come together. But nutrition takes some planning, and you kind of set a you almost have to kind of set a schedule, and you got to kind of stick by it. And that seemed to be what helped me.
Right.
Because when I kind of deviated from the path, things got nasty, you know, things weren't working right. So, yeah, I like a shout out to F2C Nutrition, with a Canadian company that, you know, they bend over backwards to kind of help you understand what you need and what's gonna help propel you forward, what's gonna get you ready for the next day, and so yeah, it's so much about preparation, but then we're going to Kona, and, you know, who knows what's there's so many variables, you know, how bad is the wind going to be? How bad are the waves going to be? On and on and on. And you're just going to have to wait until you get there.
Yeah. And every race and every racer is going to have a different experience based on just what's happening for them on that day.
Yeah. I know that when we did in 2000, it's either 2019 or 2018, there was the volcano. Yeah. So they changed the course. And I found out later from listening to your podcast, I can't remember who the woman was, that I think she was the women's champion that year, that there would actually been quite a bit of distance and elevation added to the bike as a result of having to augment the course because of the volcano. And I remember, I believe it was Fiona that crossed the line. She was the last person to cross the line before they shut off the clock.
Oh, yeah.
And it was heartbreaking because Shannon was the next person to cross the line 2 minutes and 36 seconds after they had turned off the clock on day 2. And we were coming down. We were just coming up to Hawi, and her bleep box broke. We didn't know that at the time, but that's the box sends the signal to the front and rear derailleur so that you can shift. We didn't know what the hell the problem was. So we ended up I told Shannon, look, you can be in the big ring or the small ring, and you're just going to have to stay in this gear. And you've got, and I can't remember now, I think it was 32 minutes to go 12 miles. And from the base of, you know, to get up to Hawi to where you turn down into that state park. So, and she did the best she could. I mean, she was pushing so hard in the big ring. Of course, she's a big ring girl. And it was just so heartbreaking. It's like, to this day, it's hard to even think about, you know?
Yeah.
So I don't want to be that person. I want to be that. Like I said, there are no guarantees, especially in Kona.
Right. Yeah. Especially with that swim. You know,
Yeah.
if you're later in the swim, you can get some really bad action.
Hopefully I'll do well in that department. I just started swimming a couple of weeks ago. I'm really starting to put in the time. I'm joking. I think that's just kind of one thing that I think that we can all do, that you can kind of, you can't do enough of it. Generally, you don't get injured too badly from, like, oh, I swam too much and I can't walk.
Yeah.
As opposed to like a bike crash or a running injury, or a bike, So, yeah, I'm kind of excited about that. And I can't wait to get there and just swim in the ocean a little bit.
Yeah, I know that the other athlete that we're doing the athlete and profile on, Keri Mandell, is going into train right from the beginning of November up to the race. I mean, not everybody has the luxury to be able to take their work with them to Hawaii. Oh,
yeah,
but, yeah.
No, that's a good deal. I'm trying to get there as early as I can, but no, in fact, I didn't know that, so I'll have to look her up when she's there. Maybe we can do some rides together or something like that. But there's something about that, there's something very beautiful about Kona as opposed to some of the other islands. And yeah, I just can't wait to hear that kind of Kona wind, Kona ocean, Kona. Every beach you go to, there's a green turtle sitting there waiting for you, and there's cats meowing and chickens running around, and yeah, I love it.
Were you watching the Ironman this past weekend?
I couldn't do that. I couldn't watch it. I have a real hard time. Lately, I'm a little ticked off at WTC, the World Triathlon Corporation, because they walked away from Penticton, and don't even get me started on this because I'm so stinking mad.
Oh, actually, I was gonna ask you about that. So tell me.
I started. I think I want to say that I went to Penticton 2002, spent the night on the grass so that I could sign up the next morning for 2003. And there was already a line 400 yards long, and there were tents set up.
Yep.
And I'm like, who's in that tent? Because I don't think that you can just set up a tent there and that's going to save your spot in line. And somebody spoke up and said, dude, the guy that's in that tent or all these tents that you see, they're out racing right now, and they're going to get in line to sign up for next year. I mean, that's how coveted this race is.
Yeah.
And it's just, God, I can't believe that they would walk away from something so beautiful and just the tradition. You walk into the park there and all those rings with all the contestants that have won the races over the years. I mean, who walks away from something like that? I don't get it. So it's really heartbreaking. And I don't know the fiasco here this last, because I was there to do the race.
You raced the last one, so yeah.
And they canceled the swim after the storm the night before, and you wake up and it's this beautiful Penticton morning. Yeah. And granted it was a little cold, but hey, once you get in that water and start swimming, you're going to be fine.
Well,
but they canceled the swim. I just could not believe it.
Yeah.
So, anyways, I finished. I did well. I did fine. I had some GI issues that if you really want to go into it, I could love to go into detail. But I made it through the race, and it's tradition. And it's funny. I stay at the same slumber lodge every year.
Oh, right there at the beach.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so it used to be so funny because you would come there, and on Saturday before the race, the hotel manager would come up and say, well, would you like to stay here next year? And you would make a deposit.
Right. And
everybody in the hotel made a deposit. So the exact same people were in the exact same room every year. And because, back then, getting a hotel room wasn't easy in Penticton. Still kind of really isn't.
Still, it's probably harder now.
Yeah. If you want to be close to the venue. If you want to be close to everything. Mm-hmm. So, but yeah, that was heartbreaking. I was going to say one thing. I'm going to throw this out to Bill Justice, but I'm going to do the Peach Classic this year. I'm coming up to Penticton because it just bugs me so much that they would walk away from that town And, I'm going to support that, the city of Penticton and do the Peach Classic, which I've always wanted to do, but this time it's on my schedule, on my radar.
So are you calling out Bill to do it with you?
Yeah, I
Is that
want
what
Bill
you're
to
saying?
come and do it with me. Yeah. And we could be the odd couple. People see us coming
Just
and
keep your clothes
they
on, please.
no, I promise. And then, like I said, I'm a different person now. That was the old me. This is, yeah.
Yeah. Well, you do well as an age grouper. You've had a number of top 10 finishes. And with the Ironman Canada being in your backyard, even though it's over an international border,
Yeah.
is that your favorite, or do you have another favorite out there as far as different Ironman races you've gone to, and maybe not for your result, but for just the charm of the race?
No, hands down, Penticton, hands down. And then, I liked Coeur d'Alene too. And Coeur d'Alene's a friendly town, and it's a great course too. But there was just something about Penticton from the start. And, it's kind of funny. And you decided to interview me, and I'm a blabbermouth, but this goes back to when I decided that I wanted to even do a triathlon, and I was going to get a triathlon bike. And I go to Issaquah Ski and Cycle, and there's a guy there. His name is Tom Price. And at that time, he had been in a bad accident, and he didn't look like a triathlete at all. And he was recovering from a pretty bad accident that included a head injury. And anyway, so I get to talking to him. Yeah, I think I want to try a triathlon and someday maybe do an Ironman. And he's like, oh, wow, good for you. And, I need to get a tri bike. He goes, you know what? No, I think you should get a good road bike and start with that. So down the road, I eventually buy a tri bike, and I go to another tri store. I'm trying to remember the name of it. Anyways, it was a triathlon store at Lushai Lake Waterfront, and I walk in, and there's Tom Price. And
wow,
I go, hey Tom, wow, you look great. He goes, yeah, I'm a lot better than when you first saw me, because he'd been healing from all this. And so all these customers are walking in, and they're talking to Tom Price, and like on and on and on and on and on, just like, oh my God, yeah, okay, well, thanks, Tom, so much, blah, 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 blah. Never once did he tell me that he was a champion, that he had won that race.
Yeah.
Until I actually went up there to Penticton, and it wasn't that I saw his plaque in the circle with all the champions but it was other people talking. Yeah. And they were laughing because they were like, dude, you didn't know? And, I don't know if he won Ultraman Canada, but I'm sure he wouldn't surprise me one bit if he did.
Tom Price was the first winner of Ultraman Canada in 1993. So that race had 8 people in it, and he won that race. So yeah, you were getting good advice.
Yeah. Oh God, I know it cracks me up to this day. It's just a crack up. But I was going to say, when did Stephen King do Ultraman Canada? What year was that?
Steve King was second at the second Ultraman Canada in 1994, and he was 45 at the time. So, and he had the run record at that time.
Wow.
So I know for a lot of people, Steve King is like an important part of their triathlon history, and having him call a race, like even if he just says your name as you're crossing as an Ironman, before he knows you as an Ultraman athlete. What was it like for you when did you first realize that Steve King knew who you were?
Yeah. Well, it's funny because remember when Challenge came to Penticton?
Yeah.
I think it was just 1 or 2 years. And he was, of course, emceeing for that. And I saw him carrying his own DJ system, whatever you want, his sound system.
Yeah.
And I'm helping him carry it back to his van, and we're chatting a little bit and stuff. And, I told him who I was, and he goes, oh, yeah, I know who you are. And I'm like, how could you possibly know who I was? But he knew who I was because Shannon was doing the challenge race. So he just knew that I was, her husband at the time. But yeah, just funny.
Maybe we can talk about some of your other events that you've done. Because this one, nobody's going to know unless they live in your neck of the woods. The Yakima River Canyon Marathon.
Oh yeah.
Now, you've done this for 25 consecutive events. Like,
Well,
why do you keep going back to
April,
that? What is this?
Well, it started in Y2K. So, I mean, this could have been, this was the year 2000. And the race directors were the two oldest race directors in the United States, Bob Dolphine, who had ran close to 700 marathons. They decided to take on this, as the race directors. And basically, you run from Ellensburg to Yakima through the Yakima Canyon. It's a very beautiful canyon. The Yakima River kind of runs through it. And so even when they canceled the race 2 years, I still went there and just ran it by myself.
Oh, yeah.
And I made sure that there was nobody. In other words, like I was thinking to myself that I wouldn't be the only person showing up on race day, even though they had kind of had to officially cancel it because of COVID. I understood that, but I figured that still there would be people showing up, but I didn't see anybody else show up. Oh. But I still ran it those 2 years. So this will be the 25th year, even though it's 2024. So,
okay.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess I'm kind of a guy that likes tradition. I think since 2003, maybe even 2002, I've done at least one sprint, one Olympic, one half, one full Ironman.
Every year.
And then the marathon that I've been doing since 2000. And even then, a couple of years before that Yakima Canyon race, I did a couple of marathons before that, the Seattle Marathon.
Yeah. So if you've been doing this many events for this many years, what do you do for training these days? Like, have you tailed it back? Is it just like you have your base, or are you still a training animal where you're out there all the time?
Yeah, I've never been a training animal, but I've always kept myself busy. And for instance, the rim to rim to rim to me was kind of I was talking with one of my coworkers, and we were kind of, I was going, I want to do something, but it doesn't necessarily have to be, just something to get me ready. And so we came up with this rim to rim to rim, which I had no idea was a thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it's a very popular thing. And then he's already planning this other deal where you start at Furnace Creek. Basically it's the bad water, but you do it on a bike. And then when you get to the Mount Whitney porthole, you run up to the top of Mount Whitney. Okay. So we're already planning that for next October. And I think you're going to see me kind of wander away from Ironman just because, unless it's like a local gig or something like that, I've had a couple opportunities to go Kona, and I never, for personal reasons, just couldn't take the slot. Right. And I was a dream of mine, because when I was stationed in the Marine Corps in Oahu, I watched Julie Moss cross, and I was like, man, somebody needs to help her. I watched it on the news, but I was stationed there at Kaneohe Bay Marine Corps Air Station, and I was just like so blown away by that, and so that kind of planted the seed, and I'd heard officers talking about this Ironman and how it started in Waikiki, and so it was always, the seed had been planted, but I just never became a reality, and until many years later.
Mm-hmm. You were kind of glanced over your rim to rim to rim experience there. Maybe I can just take you back there for a second. Yeah. Who did you end up doing this event with? What was the gentleman's name?
His name is Wayne Allen, and he's a coworker. And was actually a British Royal Marine who came to the U.S. He met a girl in Seattle, and so now he has got kids, and he lives in Seattle, and he's a coworker, and he has done some crazy things as far as trail running and endurance challenges, and between him and another guy, I call him Special K. His name is Matt, and his last name starts with a K, and he's going to be at Kona. He did the Moab 240. Oh, yeah. I mean, this is the class this is the class of people that I kind of want to start hanging out with. And I don't know if it's wise for me to start doing these super long distance things, but running from the south rim of the Grand Canyon to the north rim of the Grand Canyon and then running back was so much stinking fun. Even though a part of me died, a part of me will never be the same. You know, it's like, oh, it killed me, but it was so beautiful. It was so fun. And, you know, it's 85 degrees at the bottom of the canyon, you know, and then you're running up to the north rim and it's cold as hell and you can't wait to get back down into the canyon to get warmed up again. And then, you know, you're doing the last umpteen hours in the darkness, you know, going up this south rim. And highly recommended because logistically you can do it pretty easily. There's plenty of water stops. There's places to camp if you get in trouble. You can get emergency services down there. There are people back and forth on the trail. So it's not like you're, you know, it's not like you're in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And how long did it take you guys to do it? Did you time it?
Yeah, you know, in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, we can do this in 14 hours. We did it in 17 hours and 20 minutes. And it was kind of funny because, you know, we stopped and we talked and we changed clothes and we did this and we did that. And, you know, as emergency medical technicians, we were actually kind of concerned about a few people, you know, and we'd stop and talk and make sure that they were getting water and making sure that they knew what they had to do if they needed emergency services. And, you know, there's helicopters flying in there, taking people out, and that's just a crazy place. But yeah, so anyways, I would definitely try it again. And knowing what I know now, I think I could be more focused and probably do a little bit better time-wise.
Right.
But yeah, it's bring your lunch. It's an all-day thing.
All day plus.
Oh yeah.
Well, hopefully in Hawaii, you are, you know, not just getting her done and grinding it out. Hopefully you're in that race and having a good time and getting the time that you deserve for what you're putting into it, and that you have a great time with your crew while you're there in Hawaii as well, because I know it's not just the 3 days of racing. It's the 6, 7, 8 days of hanging out with your buds. So enjoy the race. Do well, and I'll check back in with you after the race and see what you thought of it.
Yeah, well, you know, my daughter's going to be there, so I'm kind of excited about that. It's kind of the first time that she'll ever see me finish a race, I think. But that's saying a lot right there. Just, you know, you don't take that stuff for granted. Yeah. So, yeah, I'm excited. I can't wait, and I think I'm in a pretty good position.
Excellent. Yeah. And maybe another age group record coming up. Hey, who knows?
Don't even. No.
Well, Mark, thanks a lot for joining me, especially when you have to get into a 24-hour shift tomorrow.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, Larry, for calling me. I really appreciate it. It's kind of humbling that you would take the time out of your day to talk to a guy that can't really decide what he's going to wear from one day to the other. But it's funny how people get pulled together.
Yeah.
And, there's like Shane said, you know, when we first met, he goes, well, the universe brought us together. So I say the same thing to you, Larry. The universe brought us together. And good luck with your teaching and your track coaching and you know, all the things that you got going on there.
All right, Mark. Well, the next time I'm down in Seattle, I'll hit you up. We'll go out.
Okay, careful what you wish for. But yeah, thanks, Larry.
Hello, listener. I love getting your feedback and suggestions for the podcast. Keep them coming at 515ultraman@gmail.com. For those that want to help me promote the show, I suggest that you tell a friend to listen to. Word of mouth is a great way for podcasts to get new listeners. And if you don't mind publishing your feelings, a free way to support the show is by leaving a 5-star rating and review on your podcast app. It's a chance to tell me what you love about the show, and it helps others discover it too. Finally, if you're so inclined, you can show your appreciation for my work by clicking the support link at the bottom of the show notes to go to my Buy Me a Coffee page. Thanks for all of your feedback and support. Now back to the show. Next in my athlete in profile for the Ultraman World Championships is a woman from Princeton, New Jersey. She's a yoga instructor, an ultra runner, and a two-time Ultraman finisher. She has completed the World Marathon Majors and the World Marathon Challenge of 7 marathons on 7 continents in 7 days. Today, she's joining me from Kona, Hawaii, as she has begun her final preparations for the Ultraman World Championships. Welcome to the podcast, Keri Mandell.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
And I'm excited to have you here and hear about some of these fantastic events you've taken part in your lifetime. There's so many things there in the opening that would be great jumping in points. But I think to start the conversation, I would just like to ask you a little bit about your hometown, Princeton, New Jersey. Most people, myself included, probably will recognize it for the university, but I'm wondering what that town is actually like. Is it all built around the university? Is it a suburb of a larger community? What's it like there, and why have you chosen to call it your home?
So Princeton, it's kind of like its own little entity. It almost feels like a city in itself because, yes, a lot of things do revolve around the university. I live just kind of outside the university off the train station. And actually, I ended up there mostly for my dad. I grew up in North Jersey and then moved to Massachusetts, where I met my husband. And then when we were transitioning back, we had a family business. My dad became ill, was sick with cancer, and he needed someone to run the business. And the business is right next door, Princeton, in South Brunswick. So my husband and I moved back, and that's kind of how we landed there. It's a beautiful area. I feel very lucky to be there. But that's ultimately how I got, how I ended up in Princeton.
And what kind of business was he running?
So we actually, our family owns a mobile home park, which is kind of interesting. So we have about 300 families that live on the property that now my husband runs and manages. And he takes care of, all that. So, and I kind of do the parties. I'm kind of like the party planner for the park. We do a lot of, special events and holiday celebrations with a lot of the residents. And that's kind of my job.
Okay. Yeah. And I also mentioned in the opening that you're a yoga instructor as well, but that probably doesn't do justice to your yoga career. Can you tell us a little bit about what it is that you do for a living at Empower Yoga?
Yes. So I developed Empower Yoga in 2018 when I moved to New Jersey. I started, I found my yoga practice while living in Boston during a very difficult time in my life. And yoga really kind of, I say, often like saved my life in many ways. And so when I moved, I was originally working as a school teacher, school administrator, but I was a little disenchanted with public education. And I made the decision to quit my job and wanting to focus more on a career in fitness. And because yoga had done so much for me, I wanted to be able to give back to a community that had given me so much. So when I lived in Jersey and Princeton, there was no hot power studios, and that's what I had kind of come accustomed to in Boston. So I was like, well, if you don't have one, why not create one? So it's kind of how it started.
What is the exact type of yoga that you do then?
Yeah. So we are a heated power yoga. So it's a power vinyasa. So what that means is it's about synchronizing movement and breath. So it's kind of athletic based. Oftentimes, in yoga classes, the heat is really nice because you can kind of get deeper into some of the stretches. So you kind of have that nice component to it. It also creates like what we call tapas. So it's kind of opens you up spiritually to your fullest potential. So it's music and energy and excitement, and it's, we don't do a lot of, when people think about yoga, there's so many different types, and often people think about sitting and stretching and, chanting, but this is vastly different than that. It's a lot of fun, and it's, super energizing.
And I know of Bikram yoga as like hot yoga. Is that like a brand of the same thing, or how are they different or the same?
So they all kind of fall under the umbrella like hatha yoga. So there's different kind of types, right? So Bikram was developed by a gentleman, who kind of coined it, and he coined it was like 26 postures. So it's taught very systematically, the same way every time. So if you go to a Bikram class, it's 90 minutes. It's always 105. There's mirrors. There's certain things that make a Bikram class what it is. Where we're slightly different, where we are, moving more. So we're not sitting and holding postures like in Bikram that would, Bikram classes do. we're connecting it more. So yes, we do some sitting and some stretching, but a lot of it's more movement based, and it varies depending on the teacher. So each of my instructors bring their own personality to the classes that they create, which is really kind of fun and unique. We follow a similar format for our classes, but everybody has the like flexibility and freedom to design their classes as they like.
Oh, that's cool. And then I guess each one of those instructors then has their own kind of following of people that like the way that they do it, and they come to their classes, but probably try out the other ones as well.
Yeah. I always tell folks to, certain people you're going to resonate with more than others. We're very fortunate where I do feel like we have, and I'm not just saying that, but I feel like we do have a really talented group of instructors. It's taken me many years to develop the team, and we've been a solid team for several years now. And, some people move a little bit slower, a little bit faster, but we try to use the same language. And how I mentioned with the formatting is kind of similar. So you know what to kind of expect when you go to the class, even though it might vary from teacher to teacher, but there's a lot of this overlap, which is important. So we kind of create that continuity.
Mm. And early on in your answer, you were saying that yoga kind of saved your life from the point you were at that point in time. What kind of job were you doing then, and what was going on where yoga's made that big a difference for you?
Yeah. So it's funny, when I first met Dan, I had told him I did yoga, but I lied. I was really only wearing Lululemon yoga pants and, pretending to do yoga. And I always joke, he reminds me of it. He's like, oh, you drank wine in yoga pants. You didn't actually do yoga. So, when Dan and I got married, right after about a couple months after our marriage, I ended up getting cancerous cells in my cervix, and I had surgery to remove it, but I got really sick post-surgery, out of work for several months, and developed pelvic inflammatory disease, which is just an infection in the body. And what it does is you can treat it, but it does damage to the female reproductive organs. So as a result of that, I wasn't able to have kids. And that was really hard for me during that time because, here I am, we're newlyweds. I'd always envisioned, 3 kids, that, house with a white picket fence. And, we had imagined and talked about what our life was going to be. So when that was kind of taken away from me, it was super hard, and I became super depressed and contemplating suicide because Dan, said he'd figure it out and we'd work on this together. And I just felt like, he wasn't going to give up on me, but I knew how important having a family was for him. So I was, in my mind at that time, it was like, well, if he's not going to leave me, if I leave, then that kind of forces him to move on and potentially have a family with someone else. And the day I actually, about the day before I was, had this plan and was going to act on it, my friend was like, hey, why don't we go to a hot yoga class? And it was kind of the best and worst thing that happened to me, in my life. In a way, because I was like, what is this? And then also I was like, wow, I needed more of that. And I felt, amazing after. I felt like I had this new clarity and purpose. So yoga really showed me how strong I was. And from there, it became about what my body could do versus what it couldn't do anymore.
Oh, that's great. Yeah. And within a day, like that's fantastic that you found that when you did.
Yeah. It's kind of crazy to think about and to think about where I am today and how far I've come from that, that person, that girl, how much stronger I've been. And, it's been quite a journey because I wasn't very much into fitness prior to that either. And then it just became this obsession with and in a good way, what can I do? I didn't know how to run. So I started running. I didn't know how to swim. I started swimming and got into triathlons, and it just, evolved and helped me become the person I am today, which, I'm grateful for. And I think in many ways, my life is bigger than it would have been if, I had kids. And I'm grateful for that.
Oh, that's fantastic that you found that.
Yeah.
Now, with your yoga practice, you also, you kind of teach people to teach it. You do retreats. Where does all this come from? Because previously, I guess you had some background in teaching and organizing. Tell us about that. And what do you do in addition to just yoga classes at your studio?
Yeah. So it was really important. when I moved to New Jersey and I wanted, I was practicing yoga, I found a studio and I decided that I wanted to teach. So growing up at an early age, I always kind of played school, went to school and, went to become a teacher, a school administrator, kind of carried on. So yoga teaching kind of came naturally to me. But then when I opened the studio and developed it, it's a business. And, what's the goal of business is to be able to make some money and be able to support the studio and the students, and all that stuff. So I was looking for other avenues and revenue sources so I could kind of stay afloat and keep the business open, and have a bigger outreach, right? So, being able to take my yoga certification and learning more about it and being able to teach was incredible. And I wanted to be able to do that for other people as well. So I developed a yoga school, worked on a curriculum that got approved through Yoga Alliance, which is kind of like the governing yoga body. Okay. And that was really kind of fun. We've had like over 100 students that have come through the program that have now teach. Some teach at the studio, some moved on. In addition to that, like I love to travel. So I developed, these retreats. We do, a retreat in May every year that's actually just for women specific. And, we do a lot of hiking and yoga. And then other times throughout the year, we do yoga and fitness. So I was a CrossFit coach for some time. And so Dan was in athletics. So we kind of, do that. And it's just kind of fun because it's a cool way to see the world and get people outside their comfort zone and, just have that opportunity to meet new people, to get people together and celebrate one another, I guess.
Yeah, that sounds fantastic. And is that mainly done through your clientele that you already have at the yoga studio, or do you bring in people from all over that somehow hear about this?
So it's actually, we have more people from all over versus the studio. We have a couple clients that come, and then, so the few clients that came told their friends and their relatives, and then it became this, it just kind of grew and evolved. So I've been trying to get more people to, from the studio to come. So we've been slowly getting more, but we've had such a high retention rate, like 80% of our clients keep coming back, which is kind of fun because, last year we were in Italy, we had 25 guests. This year we're going to Majorca. We have 25 in the June retreat, 25 guests coming. And a lot of them have been, past guests. So it's kind of like a reunion. So everybody's like, oh, how was your year? They come from all over the country, so it was kind of cool and special, to do that. And I've been doing more offerings to try to offer, that doesn't work or we sell out really quick. So now we're going to Cartagena. I have an African safari retreat. So I'm working on expanding the retreat business because I think it's fun to travel and people who are really active like myself, and having things kind of done for them. Like you give an agenda, you can do as much as you want, but let's go, Yeah. Kind of cool.
Yeah. So it brings a lot of like-minded people together, and for them, it's easy. It's all organized, and for you, you get to bring these people together and meet them from around the world, and then you probably get some new ideas. They probably bring some new ideas to you as well.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm always like, where do you want to go next year? So we're working on Croatia 2026. Wow. So it's kind of fun,
So you're already planning that far ahead. That's amazing.
Yeah. I always try to have the retreats planned before the next one is up too, because I open it up for, current guests to sign up and register and then open it up to the public. I was just going to say that I also, one of the things, I do for clients too is create retreats for them. So if you came to me and you said, hey, Keri, I want to go on a retreat with a bunch of my friends, this is what we're thinking, I can help create and organize that for you. Find a place, find a location, chefs, all that kind of stuff. So that's a new aspect of the business that I've been doing now is kind of helping others create their own retreats or even just like gatherings with their friends. So I've worked with other female business owners, supporting them and developing their retreat businesses and doing some consulting as well.
Oh, that's excellent. Just ever expanding layers of the business.
Yeah, why not, right?
Well, that explains why you're able to get into Hawaii a little bit early and get your training going, because you're able to do a lot of this work, I'm assuming, through your computer.
Yes. A lot of the stuff can be done remotely, which is great. I also have a wonderful manager who takes care and oversees the studio while I'm gone, in my absence during this time. So I'm very fortunate to have that flexibility, which was really important to me, which is kind of why I wanted to get an education to begin with. I wanted more opportunities to, do a little bit more outside of,
Oh, you don't have to tell me. I'm a teacher, and my only holidays are those summer months.
Right.
It's very
And you know how
limited.
expensive it is to travel during those months too? I
Indeed,
always
I
say, I'm not
do.
a teacher anymore. I'm like, I'm going to travel when there's not the school holidays so I can save a little bit of money. For
Yeah.
sure. It's hard.
Yeah. Well, you said one of the things that you wanted to start doing was learning how to run and learning how to swim. So you obviously like the running part because you've done the 6 world majors. So I guess the first question I got to ask you is, have you yet completed the Sydney Marathon? Because now, as I'm sure most people know, there's a 7th one, or is that going to be on your 2025 calendar?
You know, I haven't done Sydney. As part of the World Marathon Challenge, we did Perth, but not Sydney. But it is on my radar. I will probably 2025. I think is going to be crazy. I think too many people are going to try to get in. I'm thinking more 2026, but I definitely would like that. That's definitely something that I'm interested in. And as you mentioned, I also have the World Marathon Challenge. So you have the majors, the continents, and my eyes are on the North Pole to get that
Okay.
Grand Slam medal.
Right. Yeah.
So I have a couple of things in the works maybe for 2026.
Okay. Nice. Yeah. Previously I had Petr Verbruzik on. He's from the Czech Republic. He's the only other person I know that's done the World Marathon Challenge. And I know that Makoto Hoshino also was like one of those guys that's like, I got to check off certain things. And once you get to that level, I guess it's like, okay, I did South Pole, I got to do North Pole. It's like,
Yep.
you got to find all those. When you're doing the World Marathon Challenge, tell us a little bit about that event, because people that haven't listened to the previous episode might not know, but it's 7 marathons, 7 continents, 7 days. Tell us, where are the races, and what it was like for you.
Okay. It's really hard for people to understand and really like get it, because oftentimes I get like, it wasn't 7 days. Like, how'd you do that? So it is an organized event, and Richard Donovan was the first race director that created it. He has since sold the company, sold the rights to someone else who has taken it over. It started in 2015. So our year, 2020, was the 5th year running, and there was about 164 people total who've ever finished it as of that date. So typically the World Marathon Challenge starts in Antarctica because the weather is so unpredictable, but our particular year, the weather was really bad. So we kind of kept pushing the start off. But, Richard was like, we need to really get this thing going, because it kind of, with pushing the start off, kind of pushed the other races off, and he had everything lined up and other people waiting and volunteers and things going on. So we ended up starting in South Africa, Cape Town. Then we flew over to Antarctica. And then from Antarctica, we came back to South Africa to switch planes, because you need a special plane to get on to land safely on the ice, especially in the conditions that were happening. From there, we went to Perth, Australia, Dubai, Emirates, Madrid, Spain, Fortaleza, Brazil, and then we ended in Miami, Florida.
And you did that in 7 days.
7 days. And it's funny because the last few of them were really the last 3 were really over I don't know, like 40, less than a 2-day period. Everything kind of got really clumped together at the end, that in order to make it through the 168 hours, we were just like, oh my God, we have to run. Originally, everybody had 8 hours for the marathon, but towards the end, just because of delays, we were flying into private airports, and we had a private, chartered plane, which is nice. There were still delays, and there were still other things going on, like the baggage carousel broke, and this happened and that happened. And, so we were like, oh my God, it was like, you have 5 hours, get off the plane, go run, get back on the plane, and, travel 5 hours to the next place. Right. So it was kind of a whirlwind. It was wild. I would definitely do it again though.
And what was it like trying to recover on the airplane? You're flying at altitude, you don't get that chance to go sleep in a hotel or anything like that. It's on the plane, off the plane, how was that?
I probably slept I don't even know, maybe 14 hours the whole week. Maybe I got 2 hours each day. It's wild. It's because when you're on the plane, you have to do a couple things. It's you got to eat, you got to take care of yourself, you got to address any issues with your feet or legs. I had my rapid reboots, my hypervolt. You're trying to do recovery things. So there's a lot there's so much going on, so you kind of have to prioritize what's the best. And when you're sharing a plane with other people, they weren't like luxury lay down seats. Like we were still, it kind of tilted back a little bit,
Right.
maybe 45-degree angle. It wasn't very comfortable, so I struggled to really get comfortable. And the plane certainly, the altitude was kind of crazy, just up and down. I get very swollen. My feet swelled, my hands swelled. I retained a lot of water, so it was super uncomfortable, certainly. And there wasn't a lot of food options, which made it even more challenging. So that part was, not my favorite, but that's part of the challenge, right? It's, how you're going to adjust and adapt to these situations.
Absolutely, yeah. And did you put on any yoga classes while you were in flight to help everybody get limbered up?
I did do some yoga. We did do some yoga in Antarctica on we took a Russian military plane over to Antarctica. It was called the Illusion. And it's funny because this plane is not meant to carry people. This usually carries waste, back and forth. Because Antarctica, they're very careful about like what they bring, and you're not really allowed to have any outside things. It's desert. It's its own. So you have to be sure everything's like cleaned off when you get off. And they live in really like 18-wheelers, like, those like 18-wheeler trucks, those cargo, whatever. That's like what they made houses out of.
Right.
And they're not really heated that warm. There was like, maybe it was like 50 degrees in there and it was, negative 20 outside. But it was just wild. So anyway, so on the Illusion, which we kind of had like these jumper seats, we had some space. So we were doing some yoga there. I did some yoga in South Africa. Towards the end, I tried to get people to do a little bit of stretching, but they were like, no, we're done. We're not having this. Oh my God. But I ended up camping in the back of the plane because if your legs are swollen, one trick is putting your legs up the wall. So right. I kind of made my own little bed in the back and did that for myself to try to help with the circulation and the blood flow.
Yeah, yeah. And so you've done all the world majors. You did this event. Do you have a favorite run that you've done out of those?
I really love Boston. I think it's just super special. And I think part of the reason is because I lived there for so many years, and that's where I met my husband. And Boston's, really important to me, and it has a special place in my heart. I consider Boston home. So I think that's one of my favorites for sure.
Yeah. And all of this running has spawned another project, as if you're not doing enough creating your business and teaching people yoga and teaching them how to teach and coming up with all the courses and retreats. Can you tell me about this other project that you're going to start work on? Oh,
so yes, I decided I wanted to write a book for a while now, and I kind of had it as a goal. And I was going to write a book, after my experience with the World Marathon Challenge. And I started writing it right as like the world kind of shut down in 2020 and kind of left it on the back burner. And then finally, it was like last year, I said, I really need to do this. So I picked it back up and I'm like, I set this as a goal. I'm very goal oriented, goal driven. And I'm, was kind of disappointed in myself that I kind of just let it kind of fall through the cracks. Every time I tried to do it, I always kind of found other things to take in place. It's like, oh, I'm going to write today. But then it was like, talk to this client or that. And I said, finally, I'm going to make it a priority. So last winter I did. I hired a book coach because I think, I just needed someone that was going to hold me accountable, to keep me on track, to keep me in line, to support me. She's been editing and we've been working together. It's really, really awesome. And it's coming together. We're kind of wrapping up the first draft. We've asked people to kind of read it, get some feedback. And, now it's going to be in a second draft. And my goal, in the new year is to send it out to publishers and hopefully get picked up because I'd like to be published by fall. That's kind of what I'm trying to manifest. So. And what is the basis of the book? You say it's kind of inspired by the running and things like that. So what's the through line of your book? So it's entitled Limitless, What I Learned from Running the World in 7 Days. And it's not only about the race itself, but each race talks a little bit of an element of my life. Like there's certain anecdotes about, how I grew up, how I lived, how I got to be the person that I am today, things that have happened, how it's about resiliency and grit, and it's about never giving up and, keep pushing forward, in the face of adversity. So it's kind of, it's about the World Marathon Challenge, but it's not. There's a lot of different things going on, and I hope it resonates with a lot of people. And I hope that, someone who reads it can feel like, they can do, but, their own world marathon challenge. It doesn't have to be, the 7 marathons, 7 continents, whatever that means to them. So I hope it can kind of empower and support people in that way.
Well, that sounds excellent. Well, let's get a little bit into your Ultraman experience then, since you're joining me today as an athlete in profile for the Hawaii race. For listeners, the race is going to be starting tomorrow. I'm releasing this episode a day early so that they can hear about M.Moody and yourself before the race actually starts and hear some of this information so they have more reason to follow. Gotcha. You and I met at Ultraman Arizona when Mark and I were both crewing for Shane Duffy. So the whole Ohana kind of comes around in circles here. That's kind of created our connection. But you have that playing out even a stronger connection in Hawaii. Can you tell us about that?
So going back, yes, you and I met with Mark and Shane while you were crewing for him. And, when I met Shane immediately, like I hit it off. Like I was really nervous. I remember going to the practice swim and he was there and he was probably more nervous about the swim than me. And we kind of, connected about that. And then afterwards he's like, hey, you want to go for a bike ride? So him and I have been friends ever since, and just kind of, seeing what he's done and what he's faced and how he did 6 of them in a year, we've made in contact. So I think it's really cool and special. He said to me that time in Arizona we met, he said, if you ever do Ultraman World Hawaii, I will come and crew you. And I was like, well, I'm going to hold you to that because I plan on doing it. So I kind of held him to it. I was like, okay, so what are you doing in November of 24? And he's like, crewing for you. And I was like, correct answer. So it was kind of cool, and before Ultraman World, I did Florida as well, just to kind of get another one under my belt. Because I don't think you can ever have too much practice with this distance and this, sport.
Yeah. And I understand you didn't have the greatest lead up to the race in Florida. What happened? What happened there?
It was super challenging. I've had a lot of health things going on, and I think they kind of came to a head in the fall, right before, Florida occurred in February. That really kind of derailed me from my training. I ended up hospitalized with borderline sepsis and was sick for some time. It took me a long time to recover. So, it was like I've been doing so well, felt so strong, and then I got kind of, pushed back, and it was almost like starting over. So similar to what I did in Florida with Hawaii, coming out here a little early to kind of, do those final preparations is what I did for Florida as well. I was like, okay, I have, I've done it before. I know I can do it. I'm pretty fit, try to take good care of myself. This is a setback. It's not exactly what, wanted to happen. But my goal was to just go out to Florida early and just kind of, hit some really important training blocks, and see what I could do and then give it my all. And it was very challenging, but I was able to, persevere through that. So it's amazing. Now my coach, now says, well, I had some health stuff before this as well. And he's like, well, we at least know that you can get ready in a short amount of time. So you have that going for you. So I was like, okay, we'll see.
Yeah. So how's the lead up into this one then? Are you feeling confident that you're going to be ready to go on race day?
So yeah, as I just mentioned, I got a little sick. So in September, I ended up getting the flu and COVID at the same time. And I am an asthmatic. I get severe upper respiratory infections. It's chronic for me. So I take, I'm always on I take steroid inhalers and albuterol inhalers and, my nebulizer. So that was really challenging. So that kind of set me back a little bit. So that was really hard because, I was feeling really strong and confident. And then I kind of went through this dip and, I'm kind of crawling my way back out, but it's all about mindset, right? We are what we think we are, or we are, so it's like whether we think we can or, we think we can't, we're right. So I think for me, it's just about, I know I have the fitness. I know I'm capable. I know I'm strong. I know I know I can do it. It's just, believing in that and continuing. So I came out here early. The conditions are definitely way more challenging than I'd originally anticipated. So I'm very grateful, because I think if I were to just like roll up and try to do the race, I would be really setting myself up, for failure. Being able to see the course, to ride the course, to experience the hills, to experience the wind, to experience the chop in the water, just to mentally prepare yourself. I'm hoping that will certainly help me have an advantage over some of the other competitors.
Yeah, it's definitely a different type of course, and you go through all the different regions and weather and everything. It's an extra challenge up there.
For sure.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is, so Billy, who is also a Hana, who, Billy Rickards, who lives out here, who's crewing for me as well with Shane. He crewed me last week, whatever, for the day one bike ride. And he was like, Keri, like any given day, next time you could have a tailwind the whole time, and it could be totally different. Like, you don't know what to expect. You really don't know at any given moment, because the weather kind of changes on a dime around here. But what I've never experienced in my life is going downhill. Like, you think you're zooming downhill, you want to hit like 30 miles an hour or whatever, and you're doing like 11 because the headwind is so strong. I've never had that. And I was like, wow, this is some serious wind when you can't even go downhill fast.
Yeah.
It's like almost easier to go uphill, the tailwind.
And I know you've been getting some coaching from Steve Keller as well.
Yes.
Yes. Steve was on the podcast previously in season 2, episode 10, and he has a ton of Ultraman experience. He was the champion in 2020 at Ultraman Florida, champion in 2022 at the inaugural Arizona. He's got some of the best bike times in each of those races. He's a fast runner. What has he given you that's giving you some extra confidence to work at the Ultraman level?
Yeah, he's definitely a stellar athlete. What I appreciate about him is he's kind of no BS. Like, he kind of says how it is and kind of tells you what you need to do. He's super supportive, but he's given me so many details. And we talk a lot about race strategy and how to attack different parts of the course and what to do. And he's super organized and just like knows everything about every little turn, every little spot, what to do, what not to do, what to have your crew do. So he's been essential in kind of that preparation. I'm not going in blind. I know what to expect, and we constantly are talking about those things. It's just really cool. So I'm lucky. I feel lucky to have him, because he's, being the athlete that he is, I feel much stronger on the bike after having worked with him now since, the spring, trying to working on my run and the swim. And it's been awesome to be able to kind of pick his brain too with this.
And from the sounds of it, he's not going to be coming to be part of your crew though?
No, unfortunately not. He, between family and work life, he wasn't able to get away,
but he'll be on the phone each night.
Yes, hopefully, yeah. As long as it's not too late. It's kind of wild. I'm still adjusting. It's been wild kind of adjusting to the time difference, because, now with they don't do daylight savings here, so it's only 5 hours versus 6 hours on the East Coast. So it's just kind of it's strange, because like it's still like midday, and everyone else I know at home is like eating dinner and getting ready for bed. It's kind of wild.
Well, Keri, I want to thank you for coming on the podcast and sharing about some of your stories. And I, definitely want to highlight the people that are doing these races. And it was great to be able to connect you and Mark in this episode, because I met both of you at Ultraman Arizona. Best of luck in your race tomorrow.
Yes. Thank you. I appreciate it.
As it goes now. And I look forward to trying to dig up those stats and see how you're going, and hearing after the race how it all went for you.
I appreciate that very much. Thank you. It means a lot to me.
Hey, if you liked what you heard today, please tell a friend, and be sure to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. We'd appreciate it if you'd rate and review the show while you're there. Drop the names of the people you think we should interview, and we'll get in touch with them and make that happen. Thank you for listening to 515, the Ultra Podcast, a production of 55 Enterprises. Now really, go subscribe now before you forget.